Okay, welcome back from the House of Independence. Here, the House of Rugova, here the historic place where the independence struggle was led for so long and so hard. Outside were the Serb military and inside were the Kosovo freedom intellectuals. They were fighting with the words, yeah. They were trying to convince the world, yeah. They were very similar to the first generation of Ukrainian independence fighters when they made the big protests in the beginning, the protest on the asphalt. This is the generation of famous Ukrainians, famous Kosovo people of 88, 89. They were fighting for freedom. Here's President Rugova. He is very much like Mustafa Cemali, yeah, and others from the generation of Ukrainian freedom fighters from the early times, yeah, who were hit hard by communism and socialism, and then they fought back and they have liberated their country. Here is Kucha Nezavisnost, should be also, I think, a word Ukrainians can relate to. And I have started with the first, here you see in the House of Independence already, the NATO sign, because obviously this is pro-NATO here, very good. This is Bekim Gashi, he is a very good gentleman, the curator of this beautiful exhibition. We have already welcomed him here, and you see here the history so well explained in this beautiful museum of the place where the Kosovo freedom struggle was organized. Yeah? This was the place where the parliament was meeting, the LDK was formed, and it's the holy place of Kosovo independence. The first part I have already explained until the moment, but I wanted to start here in the year 89, when freedom came as well to Ukraine gradually, the fall of the Iron Curtain. It was the moment where the supporters of Ukraine were the same. I will show you here the support they had. Yeah? These are the people that supported Ukraine. You remember Alois Mock, the end of the Cold War? You remember all these important personalities as well, Kinkel, Solana, Chirac, and also Cook? These are the people who supported. 3 Austrians, 4 Austrians, Albert Rohan, Wolfgang Petritsch, Alois Mock, and Andreas Kohl. These were also the people who were supporting all of the freedom of the Eastern Europeans, including Ukraine, when then the fall of the Iron Curtain led to the fall of the Soviet Union, and there was peace and victory in the Cold War, and it was Freedom Day for Ukraine, and it was so important, and it was the day when we can all celebrate. And unfortunately here, in this part of the world, there was Milosevic abusing freedom for a nationalistic campaign and starting a hot war against all other people in former Yugoslavia and suppressing the region for another decade until he was stopped by NATO power and by American power. He is very much similar to Putin in many aspects. Yeah? He is the one who is suppressing the region, leading war, like Putin leads the war against Ukraine and against the people in Donbass. And that's the disaster of the past. I will now explain the second part of this museum. I was actually interrupted, I think, during the Kosovo War. This was obviously the moment where the first video has stopped, and I would like to explain shortly. Here was the apartheid years, the years when the people here were suppressed. The state was no longer taking care of them, putting them extra institutionally. They had to organize private hospitals, private healthcare, private schooling. The state was only for the Serbs. There was no state for the Albanians anymore. They were treated like third-class citizens, but there was help. There was this American politician. I think everybody in Ukrainian politics will recognize him. Elliot Engel. He supported Kosovo people, Kosovo Albanians. He supported, because human rights and the rights of Europe and America, our idea are universal. They are now valid for Ukrainians who want our support, and they were then 20 years back, 25 years back, they were valid also for the Kosovo Albanians. And this is the universality, and for Crimean Tatars, for the Crimean Tatars as well. We do it for a reason. We believe in our values. And it's time for the Ukrainians to show that they also understand that the values are universal and that they recognize Kosovo absolutely. Here the independence struggle, the historic president, the founder of the First Republic, and here many of the personalities of the world supporting Ibrahim Rugova, the Pope, the President of America, and then came obviously the moments in the 90s where the war in Bosnia was escalating, Srebrenica and the terrors of the Bosnian years, of the Bosnian War. And then this led also in the next stage after America intervened in Bosnia. Then the focus of the Milosevic terror regime focused on Kosovo. And here you see the Prime Minister, today's Prime Minister Albin Kurti, supporting the protesting against violent military formations back then in the second part of the 90s. And then the UČK starting the uprising after Albanian depots were open, and then this all led then after the horrors and the massacres, the genocide, to the international community taking responsibility in Rambouillet, trying to find the agreement, the Albanian side, the Kosovo Albanian side signing here, but Milosevic, despite several efforts, not ready for it. He wanted to chase everybody out of Kosovo who didn't ethnically, religiously believe in him. And he started the second part of the genocide here, and then the Operation Horseshoe, with the idea of removing the Albanians from the territory of Kosovo and killing as many as possible and driving as many as possible outside. Here, by the way, you see the present president of Serbia in the background, Mr. Vučić, who is here, and his mentor, Mr. Šešelj, but no Albanians will be left in Kosovo. It's quite similar to what the policy is now of Russia in Crimea, suppressing the Crimean Tatars and getting as many as possible out. This is the idea as well for Milosevic in the past. Here you see 1 million of people have been made refugee and left. They went from house to house for every single house in order to drive them out. But then came American justice delivered by American cruise missiles to stop the genocide. And then the support came also in the form of military support, and then together with the UČK as the ground troops, they were able to deliver and to bring freedom to Kosovo. And here you see the first group of the Ministries of Defense of Kosovo. Here you see the various groups here fighting for freedom. The Stab Berčečizme, that's the UČK, the Liberation Army's general zone, and I will also make an interview with one gentleman from America I got acquainted who was fighting exactly here in Košar. The vital link with Albania, that was very important. Then you here have the moment of liberation, that was in the 9th of June 99, and it was a big victory by America and the Kosovo Albanians to bring to liberate Kosovo first, and it led also to the liberation of Serbia, because what happened is that 1 year later Milosevic fell, his genocidal regime was stopped then by the Serb middle classes protesting against his terror, and one day I'm sure the Russian middle class will rise against Putin and will take him down, because he is quite a similar personality like Milosevic, and bringing war and terror against the Ukrainians is quite the same, like what happened in this terrible confrontation. Here you see then the year 99, after the war, the first UNMIK mission, and I'm also calling for a similar mission for Crimea and Donbass. Since 5 years I call for it. It would be much better to have the United Mission in Crimea and the United Nations mission in Donbass, in order to make clear that we have then a transition government there, internationally supervised, and then leading to reintegration would of course be the optimum result, and obviously not any part can annex and join the Russian Federation. That's absolutely impossible. Here you see the first free elections, which happened then in 2000, and then it was the terrible complicated year of standstill and of riots in 2004, but everything was rebuilt after the terrible year, and that led to the start of the negotiations in Vienna. And here the negotiation team, which was so successfully leading then to the Ahtisaari plan and to the Ahtisaari constitution for the Republic of Kosovo, which was then the basis for the independence of this beautiful country. And then, unfortunately, President Rugova, he died too early He was very sick on lung cancer. In the beginning of 2006 he died, and he left too early. He couldn't oversee the independence of the republic in 2008, which is very much the effort of the best pro-European president we had, and we hopefully have in Biden again. But George Bush, he brought 7 countries to NATO, as well Croatia and also Albania. And this was his tour through 2007 June to Albania, his famous visit, which led then to independence. He clearly said, we have to find a settlement, enough is enough. The famous in Albanian is called mjafte mjaft, it's time to get going. And he then led the free world towards recognition of independence, and that was happening on the 17th of February 2018. You see many of the famous leaders, Fatmir Sediu, Hashim Faci, Alous Gashi, Fatmir Limay, this and the press corps. These are the famous personalities who have signed the Declaration of Independence on February 17th of February 2008. Thanks George W. Bush for the independence of Kosovo and for so many countries to be secure from Russia by joining NATO. Now for Biden it's time to get the Republic of Kosovo and also Bosnia, the victims of Serb aggression of the 90s, into NATO as well by 2024. I heard 2027, that's too late. We have to speed up things also with recognition, because Serbia and Russia are now trying to get some de-recognitions done. They found some states where money matters and they could buy basically de-recognition. But here obviously all good countries of the world have recognized Kosovo already, and there are some countries, fragile, defunct countries, which I'm very sorry for, like Spain and Romania, who are supposedly our allies. They have not still recognized, and also Ukraine. I think it's time for Ukraine to recognize Kosovo as well, and I call for that. If you want to be a serious ally of the West, it's now time to recognize Kosovo and to be fully part of the free world in NATO and EU. And if not, then please don't call us the next time when Russia knocks at your borders. Please don't call us, because when we call you, you are not there. Kosovo is already in many international organizations like the World Bank and many of the Southeastern European organizations. Ukraine should also join CEFTA, Energy Community. Ukraine is already part, and get going. Also Regional Cooperation Council, obviously that's important. Yeah? Here you see the history of this beautiful place themselves, and I have shown you already the many American supporters who are very essential, like Senator Bob Dole, Al Gore, Elliot Engel, Joe Biden, and also Warren Christopher, who passed too early, Mr. Chris Hill and Madeleine Albright and Bill Clinton. If you know, these are the same people you're supporting Ukraine today, and you rely on them. But of course, you are not, you have your own policy in Ukraine, because you're a strong nation, alone out there, and you know what you're doing. But here, Mock and Kohl, these are the heroes for me. These are the Austrians, Rohan and Petric. They have contributed very much, and you see Austria really a strong supporter of the Kosovo Friends. They have listed here. There are many of the Austrian personalities, and I'm very proud about this historic contribution of especially Alois Mock, the hero of freedom, here opening the Cold War and changing the world by doing so together with the Hungarian friends. And obviously here there was then the massive support from Austria in the beginning. Here are some very important reminders about the key contribution of President Rugova to the democracy in Kosovo. Here his principles: avoidance of wars, internationalization, state building, unity, Western orientation, and especially Western orientation. This is very important. I call for, he was the Adenauer of this country. I call for Zelensky to be the Adenauer of this country as well and lead it to the West fully. This is so important, and to be fully part of the West, that's important. Ukraine can prove that, can show that by recognition of this beautiful republic, and they have come a very far way from a very difficult year. Look how destroyed, for example, this museum was. The House of Independence was, of course, a key target. And look in Donbass, many of the places look like this, because revenge of the empire, when it strikes back, is always very hard. People were killed Many were dead, but now the house is renovated and this place is now part of NATO. The independent republic is secure by a beautiful NATO, and they're very proud about it, yeah? And they are really like a strong ally. They are not still member, but they will. And if Ukraine wants to be member as well, it would be very good to recognize Kosovo and to be obviously a clear friend. And here you see the role model of a country built up from scratch, who chose the West and integrated towards the West. It came from very difficult times, from suppression, apartheid, genocide, and it, with the help of the international community, has been reconstructed very successfully. It's now the proud independent Republic of Kosovo, and unfortunately the Ukrainians are not ready to recognize. And this is very annoying, and it annoys your friend, not at least, it annoys me very much. And you know, that might not matter for the powerful in Kiev, in the big towers, but it matters, I think, very much here. This is Albania, your ally. Why not build a friendship? This is America. This is NATO. This is the UN. And this is Kosovo. And where is the Ukrainian flag here? So from the House of Independence, I call for the recognition of Kosovo by Ukraine. That is the way to do it. It's really wonderful. I'm very honored here to see Mr. Bekim Gashi, the curator of this wonderful House of Independence. Mr. Gashi, congratulations for Bavaria, for independence.
Kjo është flamuri që presidenti Rugova e ka propozu për shtetësinë e Kosovës para shpalljes së pavarësisë së Kosovës. Ishte propozimi i presidentit Rugova që ky flamur ta përfaqësojë Kosovën si shtet.
This was the flag which President Rugova has proposed as a state flag. Later then this flag was decided to be the symbol of the state. It was of course a complicated process of state formation. Nothing was easy here in Kosovo, as nothing is easy as well in Ukraine. But they managed here, and it would be good to build a strong alliance with the southeastern European countries, with the NATO allies, with Albania, with Kosovo, Macedonia, Montenegro, and Ukraine. If you want to be part of the West, come here, make a state visit, Mr. Zelensky, visit here the Republic of Kosovo and show that you are an ally. This will be highly appreciated in Berlin, Vienna and in Washington, and it's time to do it. If the opinion of Mr. Putin is more important than the opinion of Mr. Biden for you, and if you don't really know where is Southeastern Europe, no matter, make the case, try it and do it. It's time to recognize Kosovo now. Please, Mr. Zelensky, this is my message to you. It's time to get it done, and you would be very welcome here. Thanks a lot for listening. From here, from the House of Independence, best regards to all my friends in Ukraine. Time to recognize Kosovo.